Have you ever watched someone get everything handed to them while you worked your fingers to the bone for scraps? That was my life with my sister Madison. She was the golden child who could do no wrong, the one who got the Harvard education, the brand new car, and eventually the position I had earned through 10 years of sweat and dedication at our family restaurant. For the longest time, I thought the universe had forgotten about fairness altogether. But sometimes karma has a sense of timing so perfect it feels like someone wrote the script just for you. Before we dive into this story, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments below and do not forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about justice served cold. Trust me, you will want to stick around to see how perfectly everything unfolded, because what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about family fairness and the power of persistence. Growing up in an Italian-American family that owned a restaurant was supposed to be a blessing, but it felt more like a constant reminder that love could be conditional. When Madison was born, I was already 8 years old enough to understand that everything in our household had shifted toward this tiny blonde baby with bright blue eyes. Our parents, Maria and Tony, had been running Bella Notte since 1995, pouring their hearts into creating an authentic Italian dining experience that became a cornerstone of our community. Madison looked nothing like me. Where I had inherited our father's straight brown hair and dark eyes, she emerged looking like she belonged in a magazine ad for baby food. The difference in how we were treated became apparent almost immediately. When Madison accidentally knocked over an antique vase that had belonged to our grandmother, somehow it became my fault for not watching her carefully enough. When she spilled paint all over our mother's prized Persian rug during one of her art projects, I was the one who got grounded for not putting the supplies away properly. While Madison took ballet lessons, piano lessons, and tennis lessons, all paid for without question, I had to beg for months just to convince my parents to let me take guitar lessons. Eventually, they agreed, but only if I paid for them myself. So, at 14, I started working weekends at a local grocery store, bagging groceries and stocking shelves to afford something my sister received without asking. The irony was not lost on me that Madison would often complain about being tired from her various activities while I juggled schoolwork and practice time. The academic disparity continued throughout our school years. I maintained straight A grades, studying late into the night, and sacrificing social activities to keep my grades up. Madison floated through with B-plus grades, and somehow her report cards generated more celebration than mine ever did. When parent-teacher conferences came around, they would spend an hour discussing Madison's potential and creativity, while my meetings lasted 15 minutes with comments about how I was a reliable, steady student. Reliable and steady felt like code words for forgettable and ordinary. When college application time arrived, the differences became even more stark. Madison wrote her Harvard application essay about the challenges of being the youngest child in a family business, describing how difficult it was to find her own identity while living in the shadow of family expectations. The irony was breathtaking. Here I was actually living in someone's shadow while she wrote about the theoretical possibility of it happening to her. She got accepted to Harvard with a full ride that my parents proudly funded. I received a partial scholarship to our state university and had to work 2 part-time jobs to cover the remaining costs. During family gatherings and conversations with restaurant customers, the way my parents spoke about us was like listening to descriptions of 2 completely different families. Madison was pursuing business at Harvard and would someday take the family restaurant to new heights. I was simply helping out while getting my degree. The word helping stung every time because it implied that my contributions were temporary and unimportant rather than the foundation that kept everything running smoothly. After graduating college, I made the decision to return home and work at Bella Notte full-time. I had majored in hospitality management and restaurant operations, subjects I had chosen specifically because I wanted to contribute meaningfully to our family business. My parents seemed pleased but not surprised, as if they had always expected me to fill whatever gaps needed filling. Madison, on the other hand, graduated from Harvard with her business degree and immediately announced her plans to travel through Europe for a year to find herself and gain international perspective. I started at the very bottom of the restaurant hierarchy washing dishes despite having a college degree and years of informal experience. My parents believed in earning your place, which I respected, but I noticed that Madison had never been required to prove herself in the same way. Over the next 5 years, I worked my way up through every position: server, bartender, assistant manager. Each promotion came with more responsibility but little recognition. I learned every aspect of the business from inventory management to vendor relationships to staff scheduling. During my time in various roles, I identified numerous opportunities for improvement. I developed new menu items that became customer favorites, implemented an inventory tracking system that reduced waste by 30%, and created staff training programs that improved service quality significantly. Our revenue increased consistently year over year, but whenever customers or food critics complimented the restaurant's success, my parents would graciously accept credit for their vision and leadership. I was simply the executor of their brilliance, never the source of innovation. When Madison finally returned from her year of soul searching in Europe, she arrived with a new boyfriend from a wealthy Connecticut family and a renewed interest in what she called contributing to our family legacy. She had spent 12 months traveling through Italy, France, and Spain, documenting her experiences on social media and developing what she described as a sophisticated palate for authentic European cuisine. Her Instagram followers had grown to over 10,000, and she spoke confidently about food trends and restaurant concepts she had observed abroad. Madison wasted no time in scheduling a family meeting to discuss her vision for taking Bella Not to the next level. She had prepared a comprehensive PowerPoint presentation that outlined her plans for modernizing our traditional approach. As I sat in our small office above the restaurant, watching her click through slides filled with buzzwords like synergy, brand elevation, and market disruption, I felt a familiar knot forming in my stomach. I knew where this conversation was headed, but I held on to a small hope that my years of dedication and proven results might finally be acknowledged. Her presentation was impressive, I had to admit. She had researched successful restaurant chains, analyzed social media marketing strategies, and identified potential revenue streams we had never considered. She spoke about bringing in a celebrity chef, expanding to multiple locations, and repositioning Bella Notte as a destination dining experience rather than a neighborhood Italian place. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and I watched my parents lean forward with excitement as she painted a picture of culinary empire building. When Madison finished her presentation, my parents exchanged one of those wordless conversations that long married couples can have with just eye contact. My father cleared his throat and announced that they had been hoping Madison would eventually want to take a leadership role in the family business. They were ready to make her the general manager effective immediately. My mother added that they wanted me to continue in an important role as assistant general manager, reporting directly to Madison. The words hit me like a physical blow, but I managed to keep my expression neutral. Madison graciously accepted the position and outlined her immediate priorities. She wanted to rebrand the restaurant, completely overhaul the menu, hire a consulting firm to redesign the interior, and begin the process of seeking investment for expansion. When I quietly raised concerns about the costs involved and the risk of alienating our established customer base, Madison smiled patronizingly and suggested that my resistance to change was natural but counterproductive. My parents nodded approvingly at her mature handling of my negativity. The staff meeting where I had to introduce Madison as the new general manager was one of the most humiliating experiences of my professional life. These were people I had worked alongside for years, colleagues who respected my knowledge and leadership. Mrs. Rodriguez, who had been our head server for 8 years, looked at me with such sympathy that I almost started crying. Carlos, our sous chef, kept glancing between Madison and me with obvious confusion. They knew who had been running the day-to-day operations, and they knew this appointment had nothing to do with qualifications or experience. Madison jumped into her new role with the confidence of someone who had never failed at anything important. She scheduled meetings with designers, reached out to food bloggers for collaboration opportunities, and began interviewing potential celebrity chefs. She hired her college roommate as a social media consultant and started planning elaborate themed dinner events. Every decision was made without consulting me or the experienced staff members who understood our customer base and operational realities. The changes began immediately and drastically. Madison brought in an expensive interior designer who transformed our warm, family-friendly dining room into something that looked like a cold, modern art gallery. She replaced our traditional menu items with fusion dishes that sounded impressive but often failed to deliver on flavor. When Mrs. Rodriguez gently suggested that longtime customers were asking for familiar favorites, Madison dismissed her concerns as resistance to innovation and suggested that we needed to attract a more sophisticated clientele. The most devastating change came when Madison decided that Mrs. Rodriguez did not fit the new image she was trying to create. Mrs. Rodriguez had been with us since the beginning, was beloved by customers, and consistently received the highest tips of any server. But Madison felt that her accent and traditional serving style were inconsistent with the upscale atmosphere she wanted to cultivate. She terminated Mrs. Rodriguez during a brief clinical meeting that left our most loyal employee in tears and our entire staff in shock. Customer complaints began immediately. Our online reviews, which had been consistently positive for years, started filling with criticism about the unwelcoming atmosphere, overpriced food, and pretentious service. Longtime patrons stopped coming, and the new upscale clientele Madison hoped to attract seemed unimpressed with our offerings compared to established fine dining options in the area. When I tried to share this feedback with Madison, she insisted that change was always difficult and that people would adapt to our elevated standards. Madison decided that what we needed was a grand reopening event to officially launch the new Bella Notte. She planned an elaborate evening featuring local food critics, social media influencers, and prominent community members. The event would showcase our new menu, redesigned space, and elevated service standards. She spent weeks planning every detail from the specialty cocktails to the lighting design. This would be our chance to prove that her vision was correct and silence any doubts about the direction we were heading. In her enthusiasm to implement changes quickly, Madison had skipped several important operational details. She had never completed the required health department training that all restaurant managers must undergo. The new kitchen procedures she had implemented to accommodate the celebrity chef she had hired violated several established health codes. Food storage protocols had been changed without proper documentation, and cross-contamination prevention measures had been eliminated in favor of efficiency. I discovered these problems during my routine inspection of our operations and immediately brought them to Madison's attention. She brushed off my concerns, insisting that we had been overcautious in the past and that modern restaurants operated with different standards. When I pressed the issue, she accused me of trying to sabotage her success and suggested that I was looking for problems where none existed. My parents supported her position, suggesting that I was being overly critical and resistant to progress. The night before the grand reopening event, disaster struck in the form of an unannounced health department inspection. The inspector arrived just as we were completing final preparations for the following evening's festivities. What followed was a methodical documentation of every violation Madison's changes had created: improper food storage temperatures, inadequate sanitation procedures, unlicensed food preparation areas, and contaminated surfaces throughout the kitchen. The violations were serious enough that the inspector had no choice but to immediately shut down our operation. Madison stood in shocked silence as the inspector posted the closure notice on our front door. The grand reopening event was canceled hours before guests were scheduled to arrive. Food critics and influencers who had planned to attend began posting about the health department closure on their social media accounts. Our reputation, built over decades of careful attention to quality and safety, was damaged in a single evening. Madison's first response was to suggest that someone had sabotaged us, hinting that a competitor or disgruntled employee was responsible for the violations. During this crisis, I made a decision that would change everything. I revealed that I had been documenting every safety concern Madison had ignored, every proper procedure she had eliminated, and every warning I had given that went unheeded. I had photographs of the violations, email records of my concerns, and testimonies from staff members about the dangerous changes Madison had implemented. I presented this evidence to my parents, showing them the clear difference between Madison's reckless leadership and my attempts to maintain proper standards. For the first time, my parents were forced to confront the reality of their favoritism. Madison's Harvard education had not prepared her for the practical realities of restaurant management. Her confidence had led to dangerous shortcuts that put our customers at risk and our business in jeopardy. As the health department closure became public knowledge, Madison's boyfriend suddenly became too busy to return her calls, and their relationship quickly dissolved under the pressure of public embarrassment. While Madison retreated into denial and blame shifting, I took action to salvage what remained of our family business. I reached out privately to our most loyal customers and experienced staff members with a proposal. I would use my personal savings to fund a temporary operation from a food truck serving the traditional menu items that had made Bella Notte successful in the first place. Mrs. Rodriguez immediately agreed to join the venture, along with several other staff members who had been let go during Madison's restructuring. Bella Mobile launched within 2 weeks of the restaurant closure. Using my grandmother's authentic recipes and focusing on the quality and warmth that had always defined our family's approach to food service, the food truck became an immediate success. Lines formed around the block as customers who had missed the real Bella Notte flocked to support our temporary operation. The contrast between Madison's failed grand reopening and my successful food truck launch was stark and undeniable. The aftermath of the health department closure forced our family to confront truths that had been ignored for decades. My parents watched as Madison's boyfriend disappeared at the first sign of trouble, while I used my own savings to keep our family legacy alive. They saw loyal customers choosing my food truck over fancy restaurants that Madison had claimed were our competition. Most importantly, they witnessed Madison's inability to take responsibility for her failures while I worked tirelessly to rebuild what she had destroyed. Family dinners became awkward affairs, where Madison sulked while I discussed the food truck's success and plans for reopening the restaurant. The revenue from Bella Mobile was not only covering its own expenses but generating enough profit to help my parents pay off the debts Madison's renovations had created. For the first time in my life, I heard my parents acknowledge the years of dedication and expertise I had brought to our family business. They admitted that their favoritism had blinded them to Madison's lack of preparation and my proven capabilities. Madison eventually managed a sincere apology, acknowledging that she had not been ready for the responsibility they had given her. She admitted that receiving everything without earning it had left her unprepared for the realities of leadership and accountability. The family therapy sessions that followed helped us address decades of unequal treatment and begin building healthier relationships based on honesty rather than favoritism. When the opportunity came to reopen the restaurant, I was ready with a comprehensive plan that addressed every issue that had led to our closure. I negotiated a lease agreement that made me the primary operator while keeping the property within our family. I hired back every staff member Madison had terminated, offering them better wages and a profit-sharing program that recognized their contributions to our success. Mrs. Rodriguez became my assistant manager, a promotion that was long overdue and deeply deserved. The reopening of Bella Knot was everything Madison's grand event was supposed to be. We returned to our roots while implementing modern safety and efficiency standards that enhanced rather than replaced our traditional approach. Customers returned enthusiastically, bringing friends and family to experience the authentic Italian hospitality they had missed during our closure. Food critics who had planned to attend Madison's failed event came to review our comeback, and their articles praised our resilience and commitment to quality. Madison found her own path in food photography, using her aesthetic sense and social media skills in a way that complemented rather than competed with restaurant operations. She began documenting our dishes and events, creating beautiful content that showcased our authentic approach without trying to transform us into something we were not. Her Instagram following grew organically as she shared the real stories behind our family recipes and traditions. Reflecting on this journey from overlooked daughter to successful restaurant owner, I understand now that my parents' favoritism actually handicapped Madison more than it hurt me. She never learned to handle failure or criticism because she never experienced meaningful consequences for her mistakes. I learned resilience, resourcefulness, and responsibility because I had to earn everything I achieved. The challenges that felt unfair at the time were actually preparing me for success that would be sustainable because it was built on genuine competence rather than given privilege. The experience taught me valuable lessons about dealing with golden children and unfair treatment in families or workplaces. Document everything, build your own support networks, and focus on developing real skills rather than seeking recognition. Success based on merit lasts longer than success based on favoritism because it can withstand scrutiny and adversity. When karma finally arrives, it often comes not as dramatic punishment, but as natural consequences of poor decisions meeting reality. I learned to forgive my parents and Madison while maintaining clear boundaries about how I expected to be treated. Our family relationships became stronger because they were finally built on honesty rather than pretense. Madison and I developed a genuine friendship once we stopped competing for parental approval and started supporting each other's actual strengths. Sometimes the greatest gift is having to earn everything yourself because it creates unshakable confidence in your abilities. The success of Bella Knot today feels different from anything Madison could have achieved through shortcuts and favoritism. Every positive review, every loyal customer, and every profitable month represents something I built through knowledge, dedication, and authentic relationships. When people praise our restaurant now, I know that praise is earned rather than inherited or assumed. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well and letting the truth speak for itself. Have you ever experienced favoritism in your family or workplace? How did you handle being overlooked while watching someone else receive unearned advantages? Share your stories in the comments below, because I know many of you have walked similar paths. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button to let me know, and do not forget to subscribe for more tales of perseverance and justice served. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear that hard work and integrity eventually win over privilege and shortcuts. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your worth is not determined by how others treat you, but by how you choose to treat yourself and others when you finally get your chance to lead.